Elijah Pedrell. I serve the 3rd Ward in the city of Greencastle, serving as one of 7 city councilors. This is my first term, hopefully not my last, as I will be running for re-election next year. It's Pride Month, and that's why I've been invited to help MC this particular event, and I appreciate the visibility, because Pride is all about bringing your authentic self to the table. Whether that table be a classroom where you teach, maybe the place where you live your most authentic self is in a doctor's office where you serve and practice medicine, or perhaps it's in City Hall where you serve on a city council. And those are, I serve in all kinds of, I wear many hats, but I appreciate the opportunity to live my most authentic life in my community that embraces me. So, as my understanding, we've got a sort of a silver bucket of questions here. But before we start pulling questions out of the silver bucket, I'm going to ask each of our candidates in a row to please take a moment to introduce themselves. I'm going to limit ourselves to 1 minute 30 seconds. I had my phone all set to time things out, but I see that there's a sweet second hand over there, so I'm just going to give you all a hard time when it's time. So we'll start right here at the end.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Maurer, M-A-U-R-E-R. I am the Libertarian candidate for Secretary of State. I want to thank Drew and all of the Indiana Democrats for inviting us all here tonight. Despite the fact that we may disagree on certain issues, this is really the forum. This is where we get together and discuss the substance of our democracy and our republic. So that means a lot to me, and I thank you all for having us here tonight. I am a Hoosier by choice, and I've been living in the Cornwall area for the last 10 years or so. I am running for Secretary of State because there's an opportunity to make something very different than what we have now. After 2000 elections, after the 2016 elections, the 2020 elections, it doesn't matter which party won or didn't. What we saw here and see here is a continuing worsening of our trust in the elections process. And so what I'm offering, what I'm here to do, is to find truly nonpartisan solutions. It doesn't matter what your political identity, who you vote for, how you're raised. This is about finding the solutions that serve us all. Elections are how we agree to disagree. Elections are the basis of our civil society, nonviolent civil society. If we can't get this right, we're in for a lot of hurt. And so the focus—
My hand goes up at 10 seconds to go.
Okay. So I look forward to talking with you more tonight about receipts and getting trust back to our elections. Thank you all for having us.
Hi, I'm James Steniak, and I'm your Libertarian candidate for the U.S. Senate race. First and foremost, thank you for being here. I'm truly thrilled to be here, and I love how we can make this a two-way conversation through Town Hall. Something that's super exciting is I see young faces. And this is absolutely thrilling because when I was about 8 or 9, that's when I started getting really interested in politics. So it's good to see young faces, it's good to see all kinds of Hoosiers here, and I look forward to representing you guys. That is what this office is about, public service. If we're not running to be a public servant, we shouldn't be running at all. I'm running on 3 things: fiscal sanity. I'm running on my vet care program because I believe that Washington does not serve our veterans. And my 3rd is medical freedom. I look forward to answering any of those questions about those. And a little bit more information about me. I'm a behavior therapist, and I live in Greenwood. And so I work with kids with autism, and it's a passion of mine. I actually worked at a school within this county, so that was also exciting to be within a county that I know well and I've worked in. So thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm Tom McDermott. I'm your Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate. I'm a lot of things. I'm a husband, Marissa and I, 4 kids. They all live in Indiana. I'm a veteran, joined the United States Navy when I was 18 years old, right out of high school, enlisted, served on submarines, Hyman G. Rickover. I was an electrician in the nuclear plant and a Navy diver. I've been a mayor for 5 terms, which means I know how to get things done for people. And when I'm asked why I'm running, it's neat to see libertarians and the Democrats going around the state. We've done multiple stops. And we do disagree on some issues, right? But we all get along. But there's one issue that I know we all agree on, and I'm not on behalf of the Libertarian Party speaking out. We agree that we should go out and talk to Hoosiers. And why is it that when you raise your right arm and you become a congressman or a senator, you no longer have to go to town halls, you no longer have to talk to Hoosiers anymore? It's not right. You're the boss, not the ones that has given him $6 million. I'm talking about Todd Young. We are his boss, and he doesn't want to talk to us anymore. That's why I find it refreshing to go out and do these town halls and to see so many people show up, like tonight here in Hendricks County. I just want to say thank you for being here, and I'm ready to fight to win this race and to teach Todd Young a lesson that it's not the campaign donors that are the boss, it's the Hoosiers that vote for you that are boss. So thank you very much.
My name is Destiny Wells. I'm running for Indiana Secretary of State as a Democrat, and I'm running for Secretary of State because this year, unlike any other year in the history of the United States, our democracy is on the line because of elections. I am here to safeguard elections from election subversion. We have a candidate on the right who is a far-right election denier and very well may be the Republican candidate in just a matter of weeks. I'm an attorney. I'm a 19-year combat veteran. I still serve. I am a military intelligence officer. I've been in Afghanistan with the Army Intelligence and Security Command. I know some things about security. And I'm also a mom. And I'm an 8th-generation Hoosier, and I don't want to move. Okay? And so we're not moving because my whole family lives here. And so I am pouring my blood, sweat, and tears into this race this year to make sure that we uphold the process in Indiana and that we start to show Hoosiers that Democrats can get elected. And mark my word, I will be the Democrat elected statewide this year in 2022 along with Mayor Tom.
Hello, I am Jen Baspatino. I also am a Hoosier by choice, moved to Zionsville in 2014, love the area. I have been asked, why am I running? Who here is happy with what's happening in the world today? Yeah, that's why I'm running. I also am a single mom to 2 young daughters who I want to encourage to participate in the process. I encourage them to know that they are not a victim, that they can take action and move forward. So when we look around in the world and we see the changes that are happening and we're not happy, my job is to show them that we can actually step up and be a voice for change for ourselves. And so why am I here? I'm here for you. I'm here for my 2 children. I'm here for myself. I also believe strongly that the Indiana House of Representatives could do with a little more of a feminine touch. Half of our population is women. And if you look at our Indiana House, we are sorely underrepresented. So I feel strongly that that is something that we can work on. And I think that the Democratic Party is the party to push change, diversity, and step up for the world. And the areas where I am most concerned are education, employment, the environment, and healthcare. I have worked in law enforcement for several years. I supported local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, working in the Forensic Crime Lab, and for the last 20 years I have worked in medical research and healthcare. So those are areas I feel very strongly. But I feel that I would truly represent, as most of our other fellow candidates have presented here, I think that we need to remember who we worked for, and I am here to hear what you have to say. People are always asking me, what's your opinion, what are your thoughts? I want to know what yours are, and that's what I want to take forward into the House. So thank you.
Wait, what are you running for?
Indiana House District 25. Thank you.
Who would have thought that a kid from southern Indiana that worked in a foundry would end his career and retire from Eli Lilly and be responsible for training engineers all over the world on information systems? One of the reasons that I'm running for office is I'm ready to give back to the state of Indiana as your representative for Indiana House District 25. And we're going to have a caucus on Saturday, and we're going to pick our next representatives, and I think you have 2 terrific people to choose from. We have the Republican Party telling lies about them representing freedom. They are not the Freedom Party. woman who can't make her own healthcare choices is not free. Parents and children that are intimidated and afraid to go to school because they can be killed by guns are not free. LGBTQ citizens that are attacked by our Indiana legislature are not free. The Republicans are not the Freedom Party. We need a person within Hendricks and Boone County to represent the Indiana House of Representatives. You have to pick somebody in Indiana House District 25 because this is the only House district you can pick from. So we need your support.
Hello, everyone. My name is Roger Day. I'm running for the 4th District, United States Congress. Hopefully I can go to Washington on November here. I've been a Democrat since as a child. I watched a funeral procession with a horse with boots backwards and a little boy. And I wanted to be someone that represented the people like he did. I was heartbroken when his brother got assassinated. Awesome. Listen, I'm not your regular Democrat. I've been a Democrat for 6 decades. I'm 67 years old. I don't know how old I was when I was 7 or 8. But I come from a single mom, worked at the post office, a school bus driver before that, lost her job at the High Grades downtown. I'm from Indianapolis. I went to Gator Central High School. I went to the University of Evansville, English Lit major. I'm here because I'm scared to death. I'm 66 years old, and for the first time in my life, I see us going back to a terrible, terrible time that I grew up through, when there was racism, hate, young people fighting and stop the war. And I think that's the kind of movement we need right now. I'm not a nice guy. I'm a nice guy, but I'm not a nice guy when it comes to Republicans. I don't like them. And I'm talking about the MAGA Republicans. There are Republicans out there that we can get to switch over and vote for us that we have to get this time. So I believe I can do that. I spent 20 years as a regional vice president in marketing sales at a health insurance company. So I know about health insurance. I know. Just ask me questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got some great questions.
It's hard to take a microphone from a politician. I'm very well aware of that. It's also hard to hold a politician to 1 minute, 30 seconds, but I assure you I'm going to be more forceful. I'm going to be more forceful as we go on this evening. So we've got some great questions, I'm sure, in the silver bucket. Drew, is the plan for me to pass the mic to the question bearer so they can ask it themselves?
Please read it, please.
Okay. Okay. We have, should I read the question bearer's name?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this first question comes from Ashley. And the question is, what are your legislative plans and priorities regarding gun laws? And I think with this question, I'll start with one of our Senate candidates, given that this gets right into the meat and potatoes of that. So we'll start with Jake Seniak. And again, 1 minute, 30 seconds.
1 minute and 30 seconds to talk about guns. Well, I'm a Second Amendment candidate. I believe firmly that when our forefathers wrote the Second Amendment, they did it to protect us through a lot of reasons. When we talk about violence and we talk about guns, we realize that there's a lot of issues, but the real issue is the heart and the violence of people. The past 30 years, we've actually seen violence decline. The 2 years that it increased was during COVID. So to me, this shows that when people have opportunity and they're thriving, violence will decrease. But what happens is when we have mental health issues, when we have struggles in our society, we're going to see more violence increase. So, to me, the issue isn't guns. I'm a Second Amendment candidate. I'm running that I believe that you should be willing to protect yourself. I look at my sister who's a minority, and I want her to be able to protect herself as she's walking down the street, and that is the way to do it. So absolutely, guns, Second Amendment, and that's where I stand.
Thank you, and please pass.
Thanks, James. This is definitely one area James and I disagree on. I do believe in people's right to carry. However, I don't believe the Second Amendment gives us the right to slaughter fellow Americans with automatic weapons. And here we are in Hendricks County, I don't have to talk too long, I mean, we know that the FedEx shooting was real close to here, and that was an automatic weapon. And Noblesville could have been a tragedy if the school there were not for a malfunctioning automatic weapon and a brave teacher. That could have been a tragedy. So we don't have to talk about it. It's happened in Indiana. It almost happened twice recently. And I believe it's incumbent upon a U.S. Senator to do something about a problem in America. When the Senate was created by our founding fathers, they pictured a bunch of senators with 6-year terms that weren't worried about the next election, that thought deeply about the problems of America. And instead, what we have, because of the filibuster, is a bunch of senators that block any good legislation from going forward. Like this type of legislation. Universal background checks? 90% of Americans want universal background checks. Why not? If that's going to work, why not try it? But that's controversial. It's insane what's going on. I've been sued by the NRA because I don't let them bully me around, and I'm not going to take $3 million from the NRA like Senator Todd Young, and I won't let them bully me around, and I'll do what's right for America and for Indiana.
Now open the floor to any other candidate who would like to answer this question. Roger Day.
Okay, this has been going on a very short time. I went to Decatur Central High School, and we had a summer day, and a class was out in front of the school under a tree having class. When a sister of a student walked out and shot her brother right there in front of the entire school. So I'm very familiar with what happens when you're a student and this happens. It wasn't a hate crime or anything. It was just that the brother was disabled, and she was taking care of him, and she just lost it. There is no, if you want to carry a gun, that's fine. But if you want to carry a gun that's designed as to use in war, that's not fine. If you want to have an AR-15, then you better have we have to change the Constitution. That's not going to happen. So I deal in reality, and also I deal in dreams. My dream is to have everybody gun-free, where my children and my granddaughter can go to school and not worry about being murdered. So that's my dream. But the reality is, there are rules and regulations you can do. And once again, the Democratic Party has sort of given up the ghost. But I guess it's a start. But I want more. I want war weapons off the table.
So why is the Secretary of State candidate answering a question about legislative priorities? She doesn't legislate. What's she up there talking about? Well, I would be talking about my legislative agenda for those recommendations that I would be making to the legislature. That is a Republican supermajority legislature and needs a Democratic voice to say, why is it easier to get a weapon than it is to vote? Why is there a 28-day voter registration deadline, but you tell me if I want a weapon, I should have it now? Why do you tell me that you should be responsible when you exercise your right to vote, but I don't need to be responsible with my weapon? You can't legislate me being responsible with that. It is a complete lie. It is irony to the hilt that how they are legislating right now when it comes to guns and how they are legislating when it comes to voting. Permitless carry will go into effect July 1st. On July 1st, even cops will be less safe. They don't care. They don't care about cops. They don't care about veterans like me. And they don't really care about your right to vote. They want to make it harder. Make voting harder, make owning guns easier. That is not how we make Hoosiers safe, and that is not how we make sure that Hoosiers are heard.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Also, directly related to policy, again, Jeff Moore, Libertarian candidate for Secretary of State. So one of the tools that we don't have here in Indiana is we do not have the power of recall, and we do not have the power of referenda, and we do not have the power of ballot initiatives. And if you look at the big national picture, right, not just gun laws and gun issues, but also Roe v. Wade, women's rights. So the Supreme Court is pushing down a lot of these decisions to the state level. There's a lot of power within the states. And so one of the tools that we need as we the people, and as we Hoosiers, is we need referenda and ballot initiatives. And as Secretary of State, this is something that I would lobby and use the office as a bully pulpit to lobby the General Assembly to pass measures so that we can have ballot initiatives and referenda so that we as the people can make our own laws directly. So we don't have to persuade 150 state senators and state reps to pass laws that we want. This is a direct by the people self-rule, and in many states this is the practice. California obviously has recalls frequently, so we've seen that recently. Arizona has a terrific ballot initiative program, very strong and robust. But whatever the policies, whatever the issues, I want you to have the tools to make sure that your government is responsible to you. And if none of the state officers are responding, then you have the tools to make the laws self-rule as you like. Thank you.
So, Indiana House District 25, I will tell you that I am a gun owner. However, I did go through background checks here in the state and no one stopped me from getting a gun. It was not a problem. It was just like going to get my driver's license. I also have 2 young daughters who I want to be sure they are educated on gun safety. Whether or not they choose to have a gun when they're older, that's on them. However, guns are so prolific, I want to ensure that they understand how guns operate safely in case someone has one around them. They also go to school every day. And recently, my mom was in town and asked my oldest daughter, who is in high school, were kids talking about the recent shooting? And what she said was, nobody talked about it, Iggy, because everyone is scared. Everybody is scared about what could happen. And I remember getting called when I was traveling for work a couple of years ago. There was an alert in the school district, and they said, we have found ammunition out on the border of the school. And I was terrified because I was out in California thinking, what's gonna happen? How am I gonna get to my kids? So gun safety and common sense is very important to me. I do have 2 young children. I don't have a problem with putting some common sense laws in place.
I want to add one thing. 60% of the deaths from guns are suicides. We aren't providing counseling for folks that are under stress, that don't have any other options, that have families that have run out of money and resources, and people opt for suicide. So I think one of the things that we need to have in the discussion about guns is the impact and the causes and how we're going to address this problem.
Did everybody who would like to address this question have an opportunity? All right. We will move on to our next question. This one is from Shannon sorry, I failed rule number 1 of microphones. And Shannon's question is, what do you propose we do about the gun violence and mass shootings? Actually,
Yeah.
I think it's been
also from Shannon. So now I don't feel so badly for letting that one go. With the legislative attacks on the LGBTQ plus community, we've seen nationwide, what would you do to protect their freedoms? And in this case, I will start going backwards from a state house position
and start with Eric Shotwell.
LGBTQ challenges go way back for me. I worked at IUPUI as a teaching assistant, and we had a great bunch of folks out there, and I worked with a person who was about 24 years old. And he had AIDS, and he killed himself. So, LGBTQ challenges and issues have a profound effect on everybody they touch, the families, the co-workers. And we have a stinking legislature that decides that one child is going to be singled out, and we're going to create legislation to denigrate a whole class of people. I think you can guess what I'll do in House District 25 to address this issue. Thank you. Jen, would you like to?
So I will echo what Eric said. My oldest daughter was just at the Pride event in Carmel yesterday. Had a great opportunity to meet many folks there. We support the LGBTQ community. We have many friends and family members who are part of that community. Again, as a woman, I understand some of the biases that are out there, so I want to be sure that all of our community feels safe, feels secure, feels that they can be represented fully. And again, I think this is the party to do that, to represent the diversity and bring that and support those rights and legislative pieces moving forward to be sure that this community feels as welcome as everyone else does as part of the community. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Would anyone else like to tackle this one? Mayor McDermott. Thank you.
Mayor McDermott again. Growing up in Northern California, I was introduced at a very young age to the LGBTQ community. My uncle Mike, was a member of the community. Discrimination in any form cannot exist in 2022. And this is Pride Month, by the way. Looking forward to celebrating Pride Month this weekend in Marion County and Indianapolis with the Pride Parade. I'm looking forward to it a lot. But it's an important issue to all of us, obviously nowadays, but especially this month. And it cannot exist. And one of the things that we do well in Indiana is draw business from our neighbors. And I'm right on the border, Hammond, Indiana. And a lot of what we do is bring business and new homeowners into Indiana from Illinois. And I remember during the Pence administration when he took antagonistic positions to the LGBTQ community and how much of an effect it had on us business-wise, and how we were ridiculed by our neighbors in Chicago and ridiculed by our neighbors in Illinois, and I imagine in other states, and it's just unacceptable to operate that way. We need to move forward together as a collective person, loving each other, respecting each other, moving forward as Americans, and that's where I'm coming from. And happy Pride Month to the LGBTQ community, and I'll see you this weekend in the parade. Thank you very much.
Happy Pride. I was just out at the Greenwood Pride Fest. It was an amazing event, and I really enjoyed being there. But what I really enjoy is seeing Hoosiers have the freedom to celebrate who they are. And it doesn't matter how you identify. I'm here to represent you. When we talk about freedom and when we talk about freedom issues, if I'm not fighting for freedom for all, then I'm not fighting for freedom at all. Every single voice in Indiana is important, and that includes the LGBTQ community. And I will look forward to representing them in Washington. I don't believe we're currently being minorities of any sort are being represented in Washington. And this is why town halls are important, so I can hear from all the communities. So thank you, Susan, for your question. I appreciate that, and I look forward to representing that community in Washington.
Thank you. Destiny.
I have a 2-year-old son. He's gonna turn 3 soon, and I'm on a statewide let's just think about that. I'm here, and I have a 10-year-old. And so in our family, we try to walk the walk. And on Technical Corrections Day, there was an ACLU event called Let the Kids Play. Because they knew that they were going to talk about the transgender bill that the governor had vetoed, and that they were going to override the veto. And so my husband and I, and then my oldest, his mother, I'm his stepmother, we had a conversation and we decided to go to the Let Kids Play event. We talked about if the protest got too loud, we would leave. And so we went. I went with my 10-year-old. And I listened to some amazing people talk about that bill and the effects that it would have on their life, specifically little girls. That bill is only toward transgender girls, and transgender girls are girls. Think about that. Just like the women's reproductive freedom issues, those are only about women and little girls. And so when those speakers were up there, they broke it down like this. Why are we bullying a little girl? And my 10-year-old clapped so hard because to him it was so simple. It was black and white. Why are we bullying kids? I'm a kid. Our kids are watching. And I plan when I'm in office that they're going to be proud of me, like many people behind me. Thanks.
So I will not be at Pride Parade this weekend. Sad that I'll miss it, but it's about taking action. And so I will not be there because I will be serving in the Indiana Air National Guard. That's my commitment, that's my action, that's my promise. So regrets that I won't be there. But we treasure people. That's our value, that's our principle. We treasure all people, no matter how they look, how they act, who they love. As the Supreme Court ruled, love is love. And we are blind to that. That's our best self, when we are blind to how we see other people, because we don't care, we don't judge. The Libertarian Party, as a fact, is the only party to support and love and embrace our LGBTQ community since its founding in 1971. For more than 50 years, Libertarians, before Democrats, before Republicans, have embraced the LGBTQ community. And the way that this manifests in the Secretary of State's office is that we need to take that same value, that same approach, that same blindness, and to look at your vote and make sure that your vote, your voice is counted, and that it is blind in the sense that it is equal to all others. And if we have a disparity in whose voice, whose vote gets counted, and whose doesn't, then we have an unevenness. We have a bias, and we only perpetuate the same hatreds that we see in this community and all other minority communities. Thank you.
Okay, I ran 4 years ago for the same office. And I kind of just like going everywhere, saying what I needed to say, but only having a minute and a half to say it. So I'm gonna tell you right now, there's nothing in the Democratic Party that I haven't supported for decades. I'm a progressive. I'm a liberal. Same thing, just different times. There's nothing that I don't agree with for the progressives. There's just a certain time factor that I have reality that I know can't get done right away. So we have to work at it. I'm not gonna be around when it gets done, but my daughters are, and my son, and my granddaughter is. Now, when I went to the University of Evansville, I like to call it the Harvard of the Midwest, I was in a fraternity. And back in 1975, 76, 77, 78, 79, there were black fraternities. We had what we called a gay fraternity, but it really wasn't. It was just a scholastic fraternity, so that actually went into the gay fraternity. And we had a gentleman, a young man, by the name of Rick Roll. He doesn't care if I did say his name. He's out of the closet. He wasn't out of the closet then, but it was obvious he was gay. It was a fraternity, ladies and gentlemen. Racist, homophobic, you name it. It was all there in 1975. I got that guy into this fraternity and loved by his fraternity brothers. I convinced them to change their mind. So I convinced you guys, but Matt can do it too.
Thank you, Roger. And thank you, Shannon, personally for that question. I was at the Terre Haute Pride Festival last weekend, which was especially exciting because it was their very first Pride Festival in that part of our state. We'll be having our Putnam Pride Initiative Festival in Greencastle in a few short weeks. It's really just very heartening to me to see especially our rural communities representing. So I'm just pitching that out there. Our next question comes from Linda. And it's more asking for positions, so I'm going to try to phrase this in the form of a question. Would you please first share your position on women's health care? And yeah, I'll leave it at that because the other one had to do with the gun issue, which I think we've tackled it. So let's talk about women's health care, particularly with respect to Roe v. Wade being under attack. And I will pass the baton over to Mayor McDermott.
Thank you. I'm pro-woman, I'm pro-choice. I'm here to remind you that Senator Young is going to go around and brag about how he put 3 members on the U.S. Supreme Court that are going to overturn Roe versus Wade. He's going to do it, and he's going to get credit for it in that community, and this is a matter of votes now. I'm pro-woman, I'm pro-choice, and we got to get more votes out to show Indiana elected officials in the supermajority in the state house, our governor, to show people in Washington, D.C. that that's not the way we think. You know, I've been told I have the radical agenda lately, being pro-woman and pro-choice. I want to remind everybody that Roe versus Wade's been the law of the land my entire life. This is the way it's been. The radical agenda is reversing 50 years of precedent. That's the radical agenda. I think our agenda is mainstream. Roe versus Wade is the law of the land. Anybody that wants to overturn it in 1 year, calling our agenda the radical agenda, our agenda is America. It's been America for 50 years, and I will fight for Roe versus Wade. I'll try to codify Roe versus Wade. I'm in this battle with you. I realize I'm a male, and it takes 2 to tango, and I find it interesting that we're only talking about one side of the equation. Restrictions on women's reproductive health. Theoretically, men can make babies 365 days a year, and women can make 1 baby a year. And I think that if we're going to talk about reproductive health, it should be on both sexes. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that great question. I'm extremely disappointed in Washington right now because they think that they can regulate medical decisions for the individuals. Politicians should absolutely not act as physicians, and this includes women's reproductive rights. Why is it that our politicians think that they can make whatever medical decision they want for you, especially as a woman? So we need to absolutely stand up for our medical freedoms. But since 1974, 4 times the Democrats have held the presidency, they've held the Senate, and they've held the Congress. Same thing with the Republicans. 4 times since 1974, since Roe v. Wade was decided, the Republicans have held the presidency, the Senate, and Congress. Both continue to run on abortion rights, whichever side they're on, and they both continue to manipulate votes through this. Both of them had chances. One could have secured the rights for women, and they didn't. The other, they could have made it more a pro-life issue, and they could have protected babies, but they chose not to. Instead, they choose to continue to manipulate votes just for this simple reason. There's no action being done. It's just words on both the Republican and Democrat side. To me, medical freedom is an essential, and it's your right, and I'm going to prioritize it.
I'm going to directly dispute that Democrats aren't doing anything for women's reproductive freedom. This issue is part of the reason I'm running for Secretary of State. It's like, what does that have to do with Secretary of State? We are not a representative democracy in Indiana at this moment in time. Because let me paint, this is how it goes. I've been talking about Dobbs, and Mayor Tom can tell you, I've been talking about Dobbs since last summer. I knew this was coming, this moment was coming. And so we do not have a trigger law in Indiana for abortion. The legislature didn't do it. So we're all sitting here on pins and needles. Thursday, the Supreme Court will let some opinions out again. Monday, and we will go through this summer until we get the opinion that we already know is coming that is going to eviscerate Roe. And what is going to happen then is that the legislature is going to want themselves called back into session. Rokita just lost that case, so they'll have to get called back into session by the governor. So let's break this down. The health of women, whether a woman dies on the table during childbirth, will rest at the feet, it will rest on the political ambitions of one man, and that is Governor Holcomb. And what he wants to do in 2024, how he wants to build out his record and possibly run for Senate. One man's political ambition determining the health of half of our population is not a representative democracy.
So when I first decided to get into this for House District 25, this was not yet an issue. But the morning that I woke up and saw the leak, I knew that there was absolutely no way that I could not move forward with this. I am a woman. I have, again, 2 young daughters. I worked as a forensic scientist. One of the cases that I worked when I first started was the case of 3 young girls, 3 sisters. They had all been impregnated by their dad. The youngest was 12. Do you think that I could look at a 12-year-old little girl and say, sorry, you're gonna have to carry this baby? So a lot of these cases that the public really doesn't have a lot of visibility to, I got a really good hard look at when I worked at the crime lab. Again, the same as these folks, I never thought that I would wake up one day and see that Roe v. Wade was off the table. So I feel strongly that, again, the supermajority, we need to be sure that we're sending a Democrat to help bring this voice, bring this representation to the Indiana House. We really need to be sure that we're stepping up and presenting the community's views, that women are fully represented, and that women have the opportunity to continue to make their bold private medical decisions.
It's clear that Destiny and I agree on this one issue, which is we believe that no single governor should have the power to tell us about our lives. And this is a guiding principle of what a libertarian is we believe in less government in our lives. We believe that we are best for choosing what makes us happiest. And so, how is this connect back to Secretary of State? The tools to give you the power to live your life as you choose to. So there are a couple here. We talked about recall earlier. This is a real case where we can have the power of recall if we have a governor or anybody else in office who fails to deliver on his or her promise, or who is not moving fast enough signatures, we can go door to door, we can take action, get enough signatures, and get that person out of office now, not 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 years later in the case of U.S. Senate. That gives us the power. It takes away power from political parties, it takes away power from government, and it creates a responsive, fearful government that's accountable to us. Those are tools that make you powerful. And that's what I want for you. Even if we disagree on the issues, that's about self-rule. Those are the tools I want for you. The second related one, again, is ballot initiative. And so if there's a law that protects your body or your right to bear arms or whatever the issue is, again, your issues, we don't have to agree. But if you can find enough neighbors, enough signatures to support those issues, make that into law, cut out the government in between. Thank you.
Okay, once again, I've already made it apparent what my opinion is on this. But let me tell you why you should vote for me, even though you all are gonna vote Democrat, we're gonna vote for a Trumpster anyway. I know that, you know that. But when I was the regional vice president for national health care, in Indiana, we had a law that was called an accept or reject law, which means if you wanted health insurance and you had a problem, you couldn't get it because you would either have to cover that problem or decline it. I noticed a lot of women had this thing called fibrocystic breast disease, which is just fibrous tumors, fibrous cyst in your breast. I went to the State House and I spoke at the State House with, believe it or not, a Republican state senator from Carmel. And we got the law changed to an accept reject state to a waiver state, which means that if you did have fibrocystic breast disease, which is like quit drinking coffee, it went away. But they were able to waiver your breast and cover the rest of it. A husband's not gonna take a health insurance policy without his wife on it, or his kids. So what that law did was make women be able to, families be able to get health insurance, except with a waiver, which means if they had breast cancer or something like that, it would be covered. If they had brain cancer or something like that, it would be covered. If you look on the old news programs, I'm on there fighting for it at the State House.
Thank you, Roger.
You're not giving me 30
Eric. I'm being legit.
Women's rights are very important, and women's health is vital. I don't want to talk about this, everybody's covered it. It's important, I agree. This isn't about women's health. This is about Samuel Alito taking over and basically saying the state of Indiana and the supermajority Republicans are gonna make your 14th Amendment decisions, which is women's right to make their own health care decisions, right to birth control, interracial marriage. Mike Braun says the ugly things out loud, doesn't he? What a disgusting person. So the 14th Amendment is life, liberty, or property, and equal access. That's what this is about. And Democrats, if we don't get our asses in gear and get this supermajority taken care of, we're gonna have some horrendous bills next year, and there's nothing we can do about it except blame ourselves. So let's get on board in this county, in Boone County, and in the rest of the state.
Our next question, taken right off the top here, from Carol. Carol Wright, and I'm trying to, there's one word in here that I'm having trouble with, so if you can please help me with it. How will you address the
Voting rights barriers.
barriers in voting rights, or voting before election? So who would like, I think we'll start with the Secretary of State candidate.
So, I may have said it before, we do some of these per week. We are not a red state, we are not a blue state, we are a purple state with a turnout problem. We are 46th in the nation in registered voter turnout. 46th, we're doing awful, we get like a D-. Let's just get an F and get on with it. I lay that directly at the feet of 30 years of Republican management of the Secretary of State's office. Not since Mayor Joe Hogsett have we had a Democrat as the Secretary of State. Before that, it was Evan Bayh. 1.6 million registered Hoosiers in 2020, when the stakes seemed so high between President Trump and President Biden, soon to be President Biden. 1.6 million registered Hoosiers stayed home. Stayed home. I told somebody, I was driving down the road today on College and I saw somebody throw their whole Hardee's bag out the window, and I'm so deep into this, you guys, I said to myself immediately, now how am I gonna get him to vote? How am I gonna get him to vote? We make voting harder, not easier. We have one of the longest voter registration deadlines in the U.S. We have limited absentee voting options. We have strict voter ID. We need to start making voting easier. We can still make it secure. I told you about that intelligence and security background I have. I will assure you, we will still make it secure.
All right, this is where we might start to disagree a little bit. we're conflating two very different issues. First is voter turnout, and the second is voter security, the real question of Carol's question. We cannot confuse these two things. Voter turnout is a problem because there's nobody on the ballot worth choosing. Nobody's going to make a difference in the office that's coming in. That's why we have such poor turnout. It's not about making it easier to vote. Carol, can you name somebody for me who wants to register to vote and cannot? What process do we need to change that we don't already have to make it easier to vote? We have security measures in process. We probably lock our car doors, lock our house doors. These are things that we have as natural processes to make sure that the people who are authorized to vote can vote.
If no one trusts that the election is fair and safe, then no one will turn out to vote.
So comment here is if no one trusts that the election is fair and safe to vote, no one will turn out to vote. Right, so candidates entrust the election. And so we're saying the same thing, that if in order to get people to turn out, we have to have a process and a platform that is worth turning out for. So that's a failure on us. Letting down the guard, opening up the keys. If we filled out every name, filled out every ballot, even filled out votes for people, making it so easy that they do nothing other than just sign the bottom of the form, that would be the easiest thing imaginable, and yet that still wouldn't turn out more voters. So two very different issues, two very different problems. We need more than 90 seconds to discuss it. Thank you.
That was a good exit. Okay. Roger, or you're leaning at the edge of your seat.
One minute, 10 seconds. So I can wrap up.
My hand comes up.
Yeah, 10 seconds, okay. You know what my opinion is on this. I think that everyone should have the right to vote. And if you don't let them vote, you should be able to prove that they're not eligible to vote. Not they have to prove they are eligible to vote. Simple as that. You have to be proven guilty, not proven that you're not innocent. That's what it all boils down to. It's really simple problems, and I've run through. The reason I'm running this time is because I'm truly afraid of everything that I've fought for my whole life is being reversed and destroyed by lies. I fought for the ERA. I fought for equal pay for women. I fought for every Democratic thing. I fought for the election reform in 2000 when it should have been, when the Supreme Court didn't get to pick the president. I fought against gerrymandering. And I'm afraid it's going to go back. I'm afraid that we're too apathetic to do anything. There's only 3 people up here, if they win their election, they can do anything about the national things like gun control and abortion and stuff like that. They can do anything about it on the national level. That's where it comes from. You're going to get from me is someone's going to raise it. I'm going to ask questions, and I'm going to demand answers, and then I'm going to tell them why they're wrong and we're right. And I can do that. I've done it my whole career.
What was it? Voter turnout. Hendricks County, primary election. We got a problem, folks. It's a loss of trust in our electoral process. And the feeling that people really don't have a choice and that they're not going to turn out to vote. And we have a huge image issue that we're going to have to address. And my hat's off to the Hendricks County Democratic Boosters, and you can see the articles back on my table back here that have spent the last year writing articles, letters to the editor, talking about voting processes, talking about rights for women, and trying to build a case that says that there are reasons to come to the polls and vote. And hats off to the Republican newspaper that has the courage to publish.
Real quick, I think one of the problems in America today is because we allow the politicians to pick their voters. And by allowing this gerrymandering to happen, and US Supreme Court sanctioned gerrymandering, by the way, by allowing that to happen, what we do is we make primaries the biggest deal is for a primary. A Republican wants to avoid a Republican primary, Democrats usually want to avoid Democratic primaries. So what they do, because they can't lose in November, because the district's been gerrymandered, so what you have to do to be a successful elected official in 2022 is go as far to the left or as far to the right as possible. And if you avoid a primary challenge, then you're clear in November, right? So when we see that we only have 12% voter turnout in a primary, it's usually because it's uncontested and it's no contest. Why show up? There's hardly anybody running against each other. And then when you do show up in November, it's a foregone conclusion usually who's going to win. And it's all a symptom of the same problem. We're allowing politicians to pick their voters. That's not how it's supposed to work. We're supposed to pick the voters. So anyway, I think that's the problem with gerrymandering. It's a complicated issue, but I appreciate the question. Thank you very much.
A lot of this goes back to what he was saying. We have to be able to hear the people's voice. And a lot of it is the Democrats and the Republicans have not given you choices on your ballot. In both their primary elections, the Democrats only had one person running for Senate, and the Democrats and Republicans both only had one. How's that hearing from the people of who they want? If we want a higher voter turnout, we have to have more people on the ballot to represent more voices. This is exactly why I'm running as a libertarian. I believe that I'm a voice that is not heard from the typical Republican and from the typical Democrat. So I was the only one who had a contested primary to get onto the ballot. So there's definitely an issue there where voices are not being heard.
Thank you. I think everybody had a chance to answer that one, is that right? Okay. Dipping into the silver bucket. This question is for all the candidates. Small businesses are really struggling. What can you do to help them? And I think I will start with our senatorial candidates first, starting with the Libertarian.
Thank you. That's a great question. Small businesses have been struggling, especially during COVID. COVID was one of the things that shut down many small businesses while we saw large businesses expand and increase their profits. So small businesses are absolutely hurting. What's going to fix this and what are the issues? Red tape. Government red tape is absolutely restricting the small businesses. It's hurting Hoosiers who want to profit and want to make a living off of their small business. We can't be shutting down their small business and expect them to make a living. They depend on that profit from month to month to month. They don't have tons of reserves like the large corporations. So if we want to protect small businesses, if we want to protect owners of these companies, we have to remove the government red tape that comes with a lot of these restrictions, and including during COVID, just the immediate HOCOM shutting these down. That is what the Republican Party did. So it's not a one-party issue. Both parties have put too much restrictions and too many things in business owners' ways to help them succeed on the state level.
Over to the mayor.
I describe myself as a moderate Democrat, sometimes to people's chagrin, but when it comes to business and courting business and economic development, it's one of my fortes. As mayor of the city of Hammond, I brought in over $1 billion in new economic development. In fact, tomorrow, we're cutting the ribbon in my city on a $100 million economic development project that we had to fight to get with other communities from deep down south. So it's something I'm very proud of. I have to go off the campaign trail to go home and be mayor for a very good reason. So I am also a small business owner. I've had 2 small businesses. I started and successfully operated a law firm, then became mayor, and let my partner take over the law firm, and I currently have a small business as well right now. So I think one of the things that makes me unique as your Democratic nominee is my business savvy, so to speak. I'm really good with corporate CEOs. I'm really good at bringing business to our community, because that's what I've been doing as mayor of the city of Hammond for the last 18 years. So I would definitely be a senator that's very open-minded to small businesses. I would hope to get the Chamber of Commerce endorsement, that kind of stuff, because I am very knowledgeable when it comes to small business. So thank you for the question.
Would anyone else like to take this question? Go.
Short answer from Libertarian. What can we do to help small businesses? Get government the heck out of the way. You know your business. It's your business. Government doesn't know it. Government doesn't control it. Only you can help your business. Government needs to get out of the way. Secretary of State's role, 4 different divisions. One is Chief Elections Officer. The other division is business licensing. And as we saw during COVID, the governor used executive authority to lean on his Secretary of State, his appointed Secretary of State, or initially appointed Secretary of State, to rescind business licenses with whom he didn't agree because of mass mandate. That is an abuse of power. That is an abuse of office. And that is government that is too big and too powerful and can stop your business on a dime. So what I pledge to you and what I pledge along the campaign trail here is, as Secretary of State, I will not use this office to rescind your business license. What happens if we have a governor in place who says, I don't like LGBTQ owners or businesses, and I'm going to tell my Secretary of State to take away their business licenses so they can't bake cakes or sell autos or do whatever they do? That's much too much power for any executive. And the Secretary of State is the 3rd highest constitutional office directly elected by you. And I will answer to you, the people, and not take away and not stop your businesses. Thank you.
So, the Secretary of State's office has the Business Services Division, so licensing is part of what the Business Services Division does. During COVID, a lot of those services went online, and so a lot of the interface with the public is online. And if you went to the website, you'll know that you can go to nbiz.com and you can register your business and get that license. I'll tell you just an anecdote about how I could help improve that relationship with the public. I needed to do some business on the NBiz website for a political campaign. And I went to the wizard and I was like, not here, not there, not there, not there, can't pick that, can't pick that. Where do I go? I'm a lawyer and I called my accountant. Where do I go? Yeah, I don't know where you go. And so I called the helpline. This is Destiny Wells. I didn't say candidate for Secretary of State. I need some assistance with your wizard. I can't navigate it. It doesn't have the right option. Well, where are you? Okay. Gives me some, well, do you see this? No, that's not an option. Okay, well, I can't guide you any further. You'll have to call an attorney or your accountant. And I said, I am an attorney and I just called my accountant. Like, there's not an option on here. I'm sorry, I just can't help you any further. That is the anecdote of why we can do better when it comes to the services in the Business Services Division. We have a lot of work to do with the automation piece and the digital infrastructure of the Business Services Division.
Gee, get government out of small business. Leave them out of, let's just get government out of big business too. We already done that. Small business, there would be no small business if it wasn't for government. Quit this hate government stuff. Government does a lot of good, but no matter how much good it does, there's always something someone's got to say negative about. Well, it didn't do this. Obama didn't get the recovery going fast enough. He just saved the world economy. Oh, Joe Biden's not getting this inflation under control. Well, if he knew there was going to be a war and price gouging by all the unregulated big companies, we wouldn't have to worry about it, would we? So, I owned a business. I owned a restaurant called One Eye Jack's, 38th and Lafayette Road. Some of you may be old enough to remember. Great steak and seafood. I started a sports bar next to it called Joker's. Best sports bar in the city. I know, because I made sure it was. I owned car lots. I owned a company fresh out of college called Plants Alive. My dream was to be a high school coach and teacher, English teacher. But they paid me, and by old high school they offered me $17,200 a year. I got hurt in football and didn't graduate in 4 years, so I had to work an extra year. I worked as a waiter at a steakhouse in Evansville, Indiana called Briar Patch. I made $22,500 working 3 days a week as a steakhouse waiter. Yet if I went to school, taught sports, coached sports, and summer school, I would've got 17.2. So I started a company called Plants to Life from scratch. Made a very successful company out of it too. I know small business. I've been there.
Jen?
With no help from government. I didn't need it. Most people do.
So I appreciate the take government out of small business. However, recently, the government with their PPP loans, I think they probably did help out some small businesses, and many folks were reaching out for that help. As the representative for the district, what I would also do, as I mentioned earlier, I want to represent the folks that I answer to. So I would reach out to small business owners, as Destiny gave a little anecdote earlier, and say, what can we do to help you? Tell me how we can best help you. How can I help you? So if you can't navigate the website, I could call our friend Destiny or whatever, whoever is in charge, and say, hey, I've talked to a lot of small business owners and they're really struggling in this area. What can you do? How can we help them? How can we rework this to help get through this process that they're struggling with? So I would say it's not necessarily pulling government out, but understanding how we can better serve the small business owners, because they have such a variety of services, businesses, and things. They're all going to have their own story in different ways that they feel that we can help them. So.
Indiana has a unique opportunity to have a global impact this year. And we need to help a class of small businesses called farmers. And there's two things we need to do. We need to make sure that they have enough resources to plant crops to make up for the shortfall that's going to come from Ukraine and Russia. And we've got to provide support so that they can afford to buy the fertilizer, which is now costing them business risks of saying, I don't think I'm going to buy fertilizer because I can't afford it and I might go broke and my farm might go under. So I think the Indiana legislature needs to be challenged to say, let's put some safeguards in place, make some money available to farmers so that we can get some crops planted, so that people in Somalia and Afghanistan and around the world don't starve to death over the next 5 years.
I think everybody's had a chance to take a whack at that one. We've got time, hopefully, for 2 more questions. I am calling it a hard stop around 8 o'clock because I've got a 4 a.m. departure time from my home to make a plane at Indy. So, this next question comes from Erica, and I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit here. This is for all the candidates. What is your stance on the mental health crisis, and how will you use your office to work to fix it? Who wants to put a hand up? Roger's hand went up first. We will go there.
Once again, Mr. Old Guy comes. Listen, I know we only have a minute and a half. I will stay as long as it takes to answer each and every one of your questions, because you're not getting the full deal here. I mean, I'm passionate about this, and I really can't get passionate in a minute and a half. Health crisis. Many of you don't remember when we took we did have a pretty good handle on mental health issues, and then a man named Ronald Reagan threw everybody, closed all the mental health institutions, and put them on the street. That's when our homeless problem became a problem. I remember going to Washington, D.C. under Reagan and seeing people sleeping on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Reagan did that. So I've got years of frustration and anger and hate wrapped up in me. Now I want to let it go, and I want to let it go on the Republicans in a nice way, but not as nice as the Democrats have always been. I want to say you're wrong, and this is why, and this is a better solution. Simple as that. That's how you solve any problems in business, in education, in law. I'm right, and I believe so, and this is why I believe so. So I can't tell you everything that I believe and why I believe it, But if you're willing to ask me or answer, or talk to me after this is over, I'll be more than happy to tell you. You might be surprised. It's really not that, some things really aren't that difficult. So, I'll be around afterwards.
Let's pass this over to one of the State House candidates, Eric Shotwell.
Oh, that's my guy.
My sister-in-law is a counselor for mental health down in a southern county. She supports the sheriff's department. The inmates that are incarcerated are on a revolving treadmill. And the problem is that they're fighting drug addiction, they're fighting mental health problems, and they get a 3-day treatment and then get released. They're in the emergency room, then they don't have any place to live, so they act out, and then they get 3 hots and a cot for 30 days, and they're able to get their life back in order. Democrats do not get the opportunity to vote for sheriff in Hendricks County. We were damn lucky that the guy that got elected is settled. His program to address mental health is one of the issues that I talked with him about several times. And we need to support him. And there are towns, Avon, Brownsburg, Zionsville, are starting to recognize that we need to be aware and we need to be addressing our citizens that are struggling with mental health. And our state government has got to get money in the budget to help support our communities. It's unacceptable the way we are.
Time is up.
So, the environment, education, employment, healthcare. When I say healthcare, that doesn't just mean care for your body, it means care for your mind, good mental health. And I think if we didn't see this during COVID, the absolute need for good mental health and support in that area, I don't know when we're gonna see it. I agree with my colleague Eric, we definitely need to be sure that we are including that in our state budgets. I have a 16-year-old daughter who I just took her on a college visit today. And she wants to become a clinical psychologist because of the fact she sees so many of her friends struggling with just the day-to-day stresses that kids have to deal with these days that I had no clue about when I was her age. She sees that she has been positively impacted, and again, her friends who are struggling, it's the school counselors, their private health therapists. I have friends who are veterans who really need to be sure that they are continually supported in that manner. So many folks, so it's not just about caring for your body, but caring for your mind also. So being sure that there are plenty of folks that have the proper education and training and that they're supported and that there's money in the budget and that folks can have access to those services within a reasonable cost to them or free. So that's my thoughts on this.
Thank you. Over to Mayor McDermott.
Thank you. I'm 53 years old and I've seen some things change in my lifetime. I see judges under a lot of pressure now because of budgetary constraints to release violent felons, violent prisoners that come into their jail, to release them on no bond so that they keep the costs down. I see a widespread availability of weapons, automatic weapons, guns, a lot more available than they were when I was younger. And now I also see this trend happen starting in the Reagan era of shutting down hospitals that treat people with drug addictions and mental illness. And when you take those 3 factors, the early release of violent felons, people that violate the law, the availability of guns, and a cutback of state hospitals to help the people with mental illness, it's an explosive combination. And we're seeing the results of that in America right now. And that's scary. And I'm happy to see Governor Holcomb recently allocate more money from the state budget towards this issue, but it's not enough. We need to do more. We need to have alternatives to prison and to jail for people with these types of illness so we can rehabilitate them so that they can get on top of these issues. And that's my answer to that question. So thank you very much.
This is a great question. This is my wheelhouse because I'm a behavior therapist and mental health is absolutely important to me. It's something that I've studied a lot and understand. So when we talk about what we can specifically do with our position for mental health, this is what I'm looking at. Everything we legislate has to look at the impact of what and how it affects you. So if it's not giving you opportunities, it's also going to affect your mental health. Additionally to that, I'd like to point out a very specific thing that I plan for mental health, and this is with my vet care program. We see a very high suicide rate right now for veterans, and that's because of mental health issues as well as not giving veterans what they need. So my vet care program gives them the opportunity to get the medical and mental health, to get their cares absolutely taken care of. And so when we were looking at this program, we were looking at how can we reduce that suicide rate. The best way I could do that was to give them direct money and access to their health care. So to give them the opportunity to choose whatever physicians meet their needs. That includes mental health physicians, it includes the care. And then it also, whatever place is most convenient for them so they don't have to drive 100 miles to see whoever they are required to by the VA.
I'm going to tie in from our last question about helping small businesses, since that seemed to hit a nerve. There's an important warning. A government that is so big to give you everything you need is dangerous because it can take away everything that you have. That's also true when it comes to healthcare, mental health care. So let's keep that in mind. And that's why, from a libertarian perspective, we look to see, the free market, entrepreneurs, small businesses, people who have solutions. A friend of mine's a pastor and wants to use his church to facilitate emergency housing for homeless, who often are homeless because of mental health issues. He can't have that business because he's competing with the city monopoly downtown. The city wants to have the revenue from all of the homeless nights, and so they use the law to keep him from giving emergency housing to people with mental health issues. That's one way the Secretary of State's office can help, which is to make it easy to license businesses, and in this case, probably nonprofits, who can use free market volunteer dollars, donations, nonprofit dollars, to solve our most pressing issues in creative and responsive ways that government cannot. It's not government's fault, but government just isn't the best vehicle for these solutions. A government that's so big that they give you everything you need is powerful enough to take away everything you have.
We can't have it both ways. We can't say government's bad and then I want to be government, this is how I'll help you. So, mental health, the question is for mental health. And look, I don't want to I know we're at the end, but I've been a deputy attorney general and I've defended the Department of Correction. I've been an attorney for Indianapolis. I've defended correctional officers within the jails. And so what that has forced me to do is widen my own personal viewpoint and see it from both sides. And I also am a veteran, right? I'm losing friends from veteran suicide. Mental health pervades all issues. My aunt lost a coworker who was shot dead in Johnson County this past week. The media framed it like, oh man, that's the only shooting this year. No, it's called domestic violence. It happens all the time. You just don't see it. Also mental health issues. So I just want to highlight that. Government is not bad. We just need responsible people conducting government.
We've got time for one more question, and then we'll go to our conclusion. And I'm gonna, despite this one being a chewy question, to keep things moving along, this is going to be a lightning round. 1 minute. The hand will come up in 50 seconds. This question is from Eric, and it is a chewy question. Do you believe that the VA adequately cares for our veterans? If so, why? And if not, what plans do you have to improve matters? And I think we should start with one of our candidates for an office in Washington. So, who would like to go first?
Hi. I spent 6 years in the United States Navy. I'm a veteran. proud veteran, honorable discharge. No, we do not take care of our veterans well enough in the United States. We don't respect them like we respect them. Quite frankly, if you didn't serve 20 years, they just bid you a fond farewell and you never see them again. Like me, I did 6 years of my life in the United States Navy. Low pay, underwater for a lot of it, and as soon as I got out, they're like, "See you later, Tom," and I haven't seen them since, and that's not acceptable. You know, you give 2 years of your life, 4 years of your life, 6 years of your life, or 20 years of your life, you serve the United States of America, and you should be treated better. That's my opinion.
So this is something we agree on. The VA is not serving veterans. My first campaign stop was in Goshen, Indiana, and I met Rory. He couldn't even sit up for an hour, but he decided it was important enough to come talk to me that he would use his hour that he could sit up to talk about how the VA is not serving him. This is something I've seen at many town halls as well. I met a 90-year-old veteran who said he couldn't get new legs. So no, the VA is not serving them. And that's why I have a specific plan. I already mentioned vet care, but along with that is my veterans personal care account. So that works very similar to a health savings account. And what it allows is, it allows that freedom of the medical. So the waste that's in the VA, it directs it to that veteran. So we're removing some of that red tape that allows them to get that care that they need. The 90-year-old at the town hall, it was all red tape why he couldn't get his new legs that he wanted, because he's 90 years old. And we can fix this with my vet care program.
I think as a combat veteran who used the VA, I was a VA patient when I got home from Afghanistan. I may be a little qualified to answer this. So that is, there are some good doctors, some great doctors. There are some bad doctors. There are some great services. There's a women's health clinic at the VA hospital in Indianapolis. That's a great service. Senator Donnelly, he put more access to VA services throughout the state of Indiana. Again, back to that we need responsible people implementing what are meant to be great services and making sure, like Senator Donnelly did, that those dollars are coming to Indiana and they are being more expansive. What are the legislators' priorities when it comes to the VA and making sure that Indiana gets the best service from that federal service?
But can we give it to the other Secretary of State candidate first? Thank you.
You just heard it here recently, so I'll repeat it. You can't have it both ways. You can't ask government to come save us and then get mad at government when it can't save us. And that's the VA. And so we're disappointed in this performance, and whatever your frustration is, what I'm offering as Secretary of State are the tools to hold government accountable. So whether you like the job they're doing or you dislike the job the government's doing, I want you to have the tools: recall, ballot issue, referenda, receipts for your vote, so that way you control your government. We heard from Tom earlier about part of the problem is that politicians choose their voters instead of vice versa. I agree with that. That's just one small facet of everything I'm trying to talk about here, which is to give you the tools to shift the power back from a government that's large, unresponsive, and clearly failing. Over the last 50 years, Democrats and Republicans have each had about 50% of the time to work in the VA to fix it. And where are we now? We're all dissatisfied. Let's have you give the tools to fix things.
So I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I am the proud daughter of a disabled combat veteran, a Purple Heart recipient, and I have seen my dad go through the VA process my whole life. He was medically discharged before I was born. So as Destiny mentioned, there's some good, there's some bad. At the state level, we want to be sure that we're taking anything we get from the federal government and using that appropriately and ensuring that our veterans understand that we are here to respect them and support them and provide whatever services that we have to them so that they can fully transition and feel supported as they move forward into their civilian lives. So that's where I stand on that.
Once again, veterans, every time we have a Democratic president for 8 years, we sort of get the VA problem under control. Then what do? We elect a damn Republican, and he screws everything up for the next 4 years or 8 years, and then all the veterans are bad, Mr. Then why do the Republicans vote? Why do veterans vote for him? It's amazing to me.
Nothing does more, party does more for the veterans than the Democratic Party. Look back at what the bills that have been passed under Democratic presidents or Democratic Congresses, and then look at what happens under the Republicans. People don't know that. I know that. I know every single detail of it. And if you'll come talk to me afterwards, I'll tell you about it. But oh, here goes a hand. There's a lot of people out there that are going, wow, he's an pretty in your face for an old guy. Well, I've not been an old guy my whole life. I'm still young right here. I know. You got a point to make.
Would anyone else like to take the question? I'm just trying to be fair.
I asked him, he didn't want to.
Well, that concludes our time. I'm going to pass the baton over to Drew here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Big thanks to the Libertarian Party of Indiana, the Democratic Party of Indiana, and the Hendricks County Democrats.
While we give our great MC Veronica Pedro a hand. Okay, that concludes our town hall. I will want to, actually, before I kick it over to Cindy, I want to recognize a special guest that we have. She's going to have a very exciting announcement starting on Monday. Jessica McClellan, can you stand up, please? She is going to be joining our statewide ticket, and she will announce on Monday what it is, but she is going to be part of our FAB All-Star group for this election year. So everyone, okay, and I'm going to pass the mic over to our wonderful chair, Cindy Coleman.
And we will have the opportunity to vote for her at the convention. And her right over there. All right, there's one more question I want to ask, and all you have to do is raise your hand, okay? Or not raise your hand. All right, who here doesn't want marijuana legalized? Does not want marijuana legalized. See, I thought, see, we didn't even have to ask the question. Thanks, guys. All right, now, before you leave, there's candidate tables out there. These guys need volunteers, they need cash. So, you know, if you support them, okay? We also have Carol Wright is back there with a flag and some other items for a silent auction basket, and the proceeds will be going to Mayor Tom. There are sign-up sheets also in the middle area. For anyone that is interested in being a volunteer, or if you're still interested in being a candidate, I can appoint people in Hendricks County until July 5th. So let me know. I need some people from our parties to contact me and agree to work on not only the HH dinner, but the county fair. Right now we have Charlotte. And Vicky, you know, it's one, you know, for each thing. So they need help, you know, so please step up. Upcoming events. Now, this Saturday, 6/11, Boosters are having a coffee at 10 o'clock at the Beehive in Danville. There is the AMO parade, setup is at 1 o'clock, and the parade itself is at 2 o'clock. So you guys can go have coffee, then show up over at AMO and jump on the float, and the candy will be provided for you to throw. June 17th, we've got the state HH dinner. Doors open at 7. The dinner is at 7 o'clock. There's an after party by the Indiana Young Democrats at Loft Miller's Pub, and James Carville will be our speaker. The convention is the following day on June 18th. Sign-in is from 7 a.m., or registration is 7 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. In Hall K, and I'll send this information out to pertinent people. At 10 o'clock, there'll be district meetings. 11 to 12:30 is a lunch break. You have to go find your own lunch in downtown, okay? The speaker there will be Robin Kelly, a U.S. Congresswoman from Illinois. We will have caucus meetings, constituency caucus meetings from 12:30 to 1:30, so you pretty much can only attend one, but because it's only an hour. But there's college Dems, there's the Indiana Young Dems, there's Indiana Democratic African American Caucus, the Indiana Stonewall Caucus, the Labor Caucus, the Indiana Latino Caucus, and the Women's Council. Oh, yes, and afterwards, the after party is presented by,
The Indiana Stonewall Democrats.
oh, the Indiana Stonewall Democrats. So,
30 seconds.
yeah, okay. She's gonna tell you about it.
It was like 20 seconds.
As soon as the gavel's out, as soon as convention gavel's out at Lofton Millers, Indiana Stonewall Democrats is hosting a reception. There's a link to purchase tickets on the INDEM's website. And our featured guest is Andrea Jenkins, the City Council President of Minneapolis and the world's first Black trans elected official.
Boom, right at 30 seconds.
All right, now, the rest of the activity is June 22nd. It's Brews with Boosters. Come out and drink with the Democrats. From 7 to 9 at Brew Link in Plainfield. And then last but not least, we have the Pride Picnic on June 26th, the Hendricks County Pride Picnic. Well, it starts at noon. Now, people have been passing around that it's 1, but it's noon. It starts at noon. At Williams Park in Brownsburg. Oh, and, sorry, that was second to last. July 4th, we have 2 parades coming up. The Brownsburg Parade and the Pittsburgh Parade. There are sign-up sheets back there. Please sign up. Our next meeting is on July